My son, who has a well-paying job, and you, who are currently unemployed and spend your days running, don't seem to be a good match. From now on, I've decided to live here with my son, so I'm asking you to leave." It was an unusual day. My usually reclusive husband had stepped outside. The intercom blared unexpectedly. When I opened the door, it was my mother-in-law who spoke these harsh words. "Really, you should open the door as soon as the bell rings. You're proving to be quite an ineffective wife, unable to manage even the simplest tasks." "I'm sorry, I was busy working and didn't hear it," I responded. "You're lying to me again," she accused. "I'm well aware of your lies about working, about not managing the household, about wasting your entire day doing nothing. It's not true." "Whether you believe it or not doesn't change the facts," I retorted. Unmoved, my mother-in-law smirked, waving a document in front of me. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. "What is it?" I inquired, feeling a knot in my stomach. "These are the divorce papers already filled out by my son. He doesn't want to be with you either. Now, sign here and leave," she demanded. My mother-in-law looked down at me with a triumphant laugh as I followed her instructions and signed the divorce papers. My hands trembled while holding the pen, a stark contrast to the unwarranted joy on my mother's face, who blissfully knew nothing of my actual situation. "My name is Samantha, and I'm a freelance writer and editor working from home. A few years ago, I worked for a publishing company, and thanks to the experience I gained there, I've been able to earn a steady income. During my tenure at the publishing company, I was diligent and managed to save a good amount of money. Thus, even though freelancing can be unpredictable, I've been able to live comfortably without major financial concerns. I met my husband, Kevin, while I was working at the publishing company. Back then, I was a fledgling editor, and Kevin was an aspiring writer. We both made our fair share of mistakes and faced numerous challenges, but like me, Kevin never gave up, even when the results he desired seemed elusive. His perseverance and commitment to his craft not only inspired me, but also drew me closer to him. After several years of dating, we got married, and I transitioned from my company job to freelancing. The early days of our marriage were hopeful. Although I wasn't yet stable as a freelancer and Kevin was still pursuing his dream, we supported each other immensely. We shared household chores and split the living expenses evenly. A couple of years into our marriage, my freelance business began to stabilize. That's when Kevin started to portray himself as a successful writer to his parents. The truth was far different. Despite his continuous efforts, he faced repeated rejections from publishers. No matter how many applications he sent out, success seemed just out of reach. Kevin would only ever make it to the second round of selections when he applied for writing opportunities. He probably wanted to reassure his parents because he knew it would worry them if they realized how long he had been struggling to achieve his dream of becoming a writer. Out of respect for Kevin's feelings, I kept quiet and played along with the story he told at my in-laws' house. In the beginning, all I had to do was smile and nod. But as time went on and Kevin continued to present himself as a successful author, I felt uneasy during visits to my in-laws. Not only did they fully believe Kevin's tales of success, but they also began to view me as a stay-at-home, non-contributing spouse. They perceived me as a useless wife entirely dependent on her supposedly successful husband. The concept of working from home as a freelancer might be hard to grasp and visualize for some, especially for my in-laws, who were not familiar with this style of working. I tried not to blame them for their lack of understanding. However, their attitude towards me worsened over time. Whenever I visited, they would confront me with accusations, questioning how a wife who neither worked outside nor did house chores could face her husband's family. As I've explained many times, I am a freelancer, which means I work from home. The division of household chores was something Kevin and I had agreed upon when we got married. "I don't see how you can criticize me when you don't even understand my job," I would argue. "You claim I don't have a real job, that I don't earn much, and that Kevin supports me financially, but in reality, I earn a decent income and contribute equally to our expenses. The retorts would continue, with them asserting that if I didn't start showing more appreciation for Kevin and acting more grateful, I shouldn't be surprised if one day he decided to leave me. Despite their harsh words, I knew the truth about our financial and emotional partnership, and I remained steadfast in my commitment to our shared life, even under the weight of their misunderstandings. The conversation had a recurring theme. If Kevin leaves you, you won't be able to support yourself. I nearly sighed out loud at these words, but restrained myself. I wanted to clarify that I was actually the one covering most of our living expenses and also handling the majority of the household chores. Contrary to what they believed, it was Kevin who was unemployed and not contributing much at home. Yet I held back those words too. Initially, I would only hear snide remarks when Kevin wasn't around. However, the situation escalated recently during a dinner at my in-laws' house. Kevin and I arrived together, but they had prepared a meal only for him, not even setting a place for me at the table. This exclusion had become routine. Moreover, they appeared to be spreading unfavorable opinions about me to our relatives. At family gatherings, which happened a few times a year, they would whisper and gossip about me behind my back. Although I was not saddened by my in-laws' attitude, I was increasingly frustrated with Kevin for merely sitting back, observing silently, and not intervening. Adding to the complications, my in-laws, under the false impression that Kevin was a successful writer, continuously urged him to purchase things for them. Kevin, eager to maintain a good impression, acquiesced to their requests. Consequently, I found myself inadvertently spending nearly $2,000 a month on them. This money came directly from my earnings. Kevin would take it from my bank account and wallet without my prior consent. Initially, I turned a blind eye to smaller amounts, but as the expenses ballooned, it became too significant to ignore. One day, I confronted Kevin. "Please don't spend my money without asking me first." His response was a look of annoyance, as if my request was unreasonable. This reaction only deepened my concern about our financial boundaries and his respect for my contributions to our shared life. "You work from home, so you have an easy job, right? It's like you're just playing around and making money," Kevin accused, somewhat mockingly. "Since it's so easy for you to earn money by playing around, why not spend a bit on my mom? Don't be stingy." "Kevin, do you see my job that way?" I asked, shocked. "Yes, I think it's an easy job because you get paid by staying at home every day," he replied, nonchalantly. I couldn't believe he thought so little of my work. As he walked away, laughing loudly, I watched his back, realizing I had reached my breaking point. I could no longer endure this. I decided then that I would divorce him. I had always believed Kevin was my ally, no matter what my in-laws said, encouraging me to give my best. But now, even Kevin was ridiculing me. I was painfully aware that Kevin, who spent hours each day in his room, was not actually working on his manuscript, but was instead playing computer games. When we first met, he was serious about his writing, always eager to craft something compelling. Now, that dedicated Kevin I had loved seemed to have disappeared. Resolved, I began to secretly look for an apartment suitable for one person. As I searched for a new home, I quietly organized my personal belongings, preparing to leave whenever necessary. After a little while, I found a promising apartment and had already visited it to make sure it was what I needed. One day, while Kevin was out, my mother-in-law arrived at our house. She rang the intercom with an eagerness that felt invasive. As soon as I opened the door, she walked in and settled herself on the sofa in the living room as if it were her own home. "Samantha, you need to get the hell out of this house," she demanded bluntly. "What are you talking about?" I asked, confused by the sudden accusation. "I've been telling you for a long time that you're unemployed and don't contribute to any of the household chores. You're nothing more than a useless wife," my mother-in-law asserted sharply. "There's no way Kevin, a successful writer, is compatible with someone like you." I tried to interject, but my mother-in-law cut me off and continued, If you leave this house, I will move in. That way I can cook for Kevin every day and not have to look after that woman, Kevin's grandmother. She's incredibly picky about how food is seasoned and complains about dust when I clean. I can't live with her anymore, so I've decided to stay here with Kevin and send her to a nursing home." "And how are you planning to pay for a nursing home?" I questioned. "I'll just have Kevin handle it. He's making plenty of money, so it shouldn't be too hard for him," she replied casually. "But you're in the way, so will you please just get out?" With that, she thrust a set of divorce papers in front of me. "Why do you have those?" I demanded, stunned. "I made him fill them out a while ago, telling him to divorce you as soon as possible," she said with a smug, unpleasant smile. I examined the divorce papers, and indeed they were written in Kevin's handwriting. Strangely, this revelation was a relief to me. I had been ready to move out, but I was still unsure about how the divorce would unfold. I had thought Kevin would be reluctant to end our marriage, that he would not want to give up on the love we once shared, and that he wouldn't easily sign the papers. I had braced myself for a long discussion and possibly a contentious battle with him. Now, it seemed, things might proceed more swiftly and straightforwardly than I had anticipated. Discovering the divorce papers already filled out was surprisingly fortunate for me. When I accepted them without hesitation and signed them quickly, my mother-in-law seemed taken aback. However, she quickly composed herself and coldly told me, "Now get out of here and leave the furniture behind. Everything was purchased with Kevin's money, so I don't think you should take anything with you." She laughed loudly as she said it. I wasted no time gathering my belongings and moved into the new apartment I had already lined up. On my way there, I stopped by the municipal office to officially file the divorce papers. Just like that, I began a new chapter of my life, living on my own without any issues. Living alone, I was struck by the tranquility. There was no one to interrupt my work or to ridicule me. Surprisingly, I found my work was progressing better than usual. It was only 5 days into my new life that I received a call from Kevin while I was working from home. As soon as I answered the phone, Kevin pleaded in the most pathetic voice I had ever heard. "Please come home." "What's wrong now?" I asked. "I'm sorry, I apologize. So please come back home," he implored. "I'm not coming home. We're already divorced," I responded firmly. "I never agreed to a divorce. That's not valid," he protested. "But those divorce papers were definitely in your handwriting," I countered. "That was just a little threat I was trying to make to you. I had no intention of actually getting a divorce," he explained. "But that doesn't change the fact that you wrote them. A divorce is a divorce," I stated unequivocally. "You don't need a wife who, as you say, plays around every day, works an easy job, and doesn't do any of the house chores. Right? Now you get to live with the family you love so much. You can't complain. What's the problem?" "I'm sorry," was all he could say. Kevin explained his predicament. "My family thinks I'm a writer, so they quit their jobs and moved here, expecting to live off me. Now they also want me to pay for Grandma's surgery, and I just don't have that kind of money." "I see," I responded, realizing why he was so desperate for me to return. "That's why you want me back." "Yes, and now that they've discovered I've been lying to them, my mom and dad are furious with me. They're pressuring me to bring you back immediately. You now understand how difficult this is for me. Please come back. Let's live together again." "Do you think I'm going to say yes after everything?" "We're divorced, Kevin. You need to handle your real problems," I replied. "Don't be like that, Samantha," he pleaded. No matter how much I reiterated that we were divorced and that he was now a stranger to me, Kevin persisted. He wouldn't accept the separation and continued to grasp at any possibility of reconciliation. Finally, in frustration, he said, "All right, I'll divorce you if you insist so much, but you know what? If you divorce me, you should be responsible for my parents' care and alimony, which you were supposed to help with while we were married." "What are you talking about? If you hadn't divorced me, my parents would have ended up in a care facility and we would have had to pay for it. You should be the one to pay since you pushed for the divorce." They found out I lied about being a successful writer. My parents are angry and emotionally hurt. All of this turmoil is because of your selfish decision to divorce. I can't pay alimony, he added. No, I won't pay that, I firmly stated, knowing that his troubles were of his own making and not my responsibility to fix. I couldn't grasp what Kevin was trying to imply. When we were married, you called me a jobless, worthless wife. I don't know if it was your pride speaking or what, but it was you who lied about me and caused me pain. Your parents and our relatives believed your lies, and they blamed me. I don't want to say this, but I was hurt far more than you are now. I'm not interested in someone who ridiculed me instead of defending me. If you need money that badly, why don't you take out a loan from a bank? With those final words, I ended the call without waiting for Kevin's response. I immediately set my phone to block his calls and changed my number. A few months later, I happened to pass by what used to be my in-laws' house, which had been sold and converted into a parking lot. The house was gone, leaving no trace of the once bustling household. As I stood there, a neighbor returning from shopping approached me. She shared that Kevin's family had been forced to move into an old apartment due to unemployment and financial troubles. Before they left, their constant arguing had become well known in the neighborhood. The fights were so loud they could be heard outside, disturbing the peace late into the night. Even the police had been called due to the noise. She patted me on the shoulder, sympathizing. You had a tough time too, and then hurried off. I turned my back on the remnants of my former in-laws' lives, reflecting on how Kevin's attempts to seem impressive with lies had spiraled out of control. He couldn't correct his falsehoods, and the gap between reality and his fabrications grew wider the more he lied. I never anticipated our story would end like this. The turn of events in my life has proven to be much more interesting than any of the novels Kevin aspired to write. It's strange how small incidents can spiral into catastrophic endings, much like the plots he dreamed of penning. Yet, it's ironic that Kevin, who wanted to be a storyteller, couldn't foresee this in his own life. The saying "fact is stranger than fiction" really holds true here. I do feel a bit sorry for Kevin. He ruined his own life by lying to his parents, chasing after personal glory and satisfaction. But observing him has been a valuable lesson for me. I'm determined to learn from his mistakes, ensuring that I don't fall into the same traps he did. It's a poignant reminder of how important it is to remain truthful and avoid building a facade that could one day crumble disastrously.